You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast under the Rocky Mountain Rooftop Network, part of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Skyler Timmons, in new setup. Woo, for the video people.
I don't like change.
It's true. But yes, I'm your host, Skyler Timmons, joined here always by Evan Lang, who is not always joined by me.
It's true. Skyler returned.
It is true. And perfect segue into, I can't find the clip right now. Oh, there it is.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
There we go.
The question is if we get like copyright struck or lose our advertising revenue for these clips.
No, we're just playing audio. We're not playing we're not showing video clips.
I mean, but the audio is copywritten too.
We'll see what happens. Will the mouse take us down?
I 100% thought you were about to play another clip right there.
Yes, now that we have a soundboard, it is going to be an ever-looming threat now, Evan.
I'm trying to think of a sound that I would want to be on it.
How about this one?
That happens. That's baseball.
Perfect. I
Beautiful.
teased Evan that there was a surprise one, and the opportunity immediately showed itself.
And I missed out the opportunity of when I said I don't like change in regards to Skyler's background changing. I should have said I like change just as much as the Rockies organization does, which is not at all.
Hi-oh!
Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
Yeah, so hopefully the audio on that soundboard, sometimes not good, but I got a lot of Star Wars, a lot of DC things, the occasional Bobby Hill yelling, "That's my purse." I'll use them sparingly. I won't spam it. But I will continue to find things for good inside jokes. Like the Mr. Bean farewell, Evan. I'm going to have to find that one. It's going to happen. But we're not here to talk about my dumb soundboard or my new location of moving over and seeing my little pennants and bobbleheads and my Majin Buu, wherever it is. There he is, right next to Satchel Paige. Good stuff. But we're here to talk about Rockies baseball, Evan. And
must we?
Yeah, because hey, May is over. It's now June. May wasn't too shabby, Evan, all things considered.
Yeah, I kind of wish we could go back to May already. We're 2 days into June and I'm recording, and I'm just like, take me back. I want to go back.
Yeah, it was much better in May, much better than April, which was a horrendous month. But May, not too shabby. Pretty good, I think. Winning record in May? Close to it?
Yes,
Something
winning
like
record.
So there we go.
The Rockies had a winning record in May. The last time the Rockies had a winning record in a month was May of last year. So
hey, after a horrendous April. And how'd that team do by the end of the year?
Not great.
Oh. Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, and there's not a whole lot we can do about it. But May was, like, after an absolutely miserable April, and it was a miserable April, May was pretty fun, all things considered. We got some good wins. We had that win streak. We did a lot of really cool stuff. So honestly, I'll take it.
Somebody asked me today of like, I've heard the Rockies, like, they've been doing better lately. And I said, they've been much more watchable lately. Like which seems like the perfect way to describe that, where it was just more watchable. It wasn't that, okay, it's the third inning, we're down by 4, I'm going to turn off this thing and watch something else. But you could actually like sit down, enjoy a whole game. They would be relatively close, although those games where it was a bullpen collapse, not so good.
Yeah.
But overall, just a lot more watchable. It was a lot more entertaining and kind of more on par of what we kind of hoped the Rockies could be, where it wasn't going to be great, but they were going to be competitive and at least they'll put together some good stretches.
This was much more on par with what we expected the Rockies to be. Because what were we saying during April? We expected the Rockies to be bad. This is like unfathomably bad. We were not expecting this. This is a lot more in line with what we were expecting, where there's been some fun ones, there's been some not fun ones. But overall, we finished the month of May with a 14-13 record, a game over 500 for that month. And, you know, I had a good time with it. I went to a couple games. We beat some good teams. We swept the defending champion Texas Rangers, who, oh boy, they are just so injured. That team, I believe, is one of the league leaders in injuries right now, which is a bummer because they were a lot of fun to watch last year, but this year they're just struggling with keeping everybody healthy.
And that kind of transitions of what made the month so good. There was some timely hitting, but really, Evan, I think the bulk of why that month went so much better is that starting pitching, man. There was some good starting pitching in the month of May for the Colorado Rockies.
There really was. Leading the pack was Austin Gomber, who posted an ERA of like 0.68 in May over 4 starts. Cal Quantrill had a sub-2 ERA. Overall, a lot of the team had a really, really solid month of May. Really bolstered by Quantrill and by Gomber, but you know, Dakota Hudson turned in some pretty serviceable performances, including 7 excellent innings against the Los Angeles Dodgers to cap off the month on the 31st. Ryan Feltner had some good, he had some bad. Ty Block had some really solid starts. It really was just like a good group effort led by our 2 dogs out of the rotation in Quantrill and Gomber. And that's what really did, like, because there were some games where the Rockies offense showed up in spades and there were some that weren't, but the rotation was getting deep into games and keeping us in it. And that's really what allowed us to win games.
Yeah, well, it's nice when the starting pitching kind of becomes a non-factor in the sense where we didn't have to worry about them. They'd go out and they'll get 5, 6 solid innings, maybe even into 7. And for the most part, the whole group, I think overall, pretty good month. Ty Block throughout some good outings or other just kind of serviceable outings from guys. There was other aspects where like the bullpen, but that starting pitching just really carried it and made those games watchable. They were competitive to where the offense, which has scuffled and still isn't hitting, I think, on all cylinders that we'd want to, it kept them in games where the offense could do just enough to win a game, which is really all you need.
And even going into June, these first 2 games of June against the Dodgers, I wouldn't even call the starting pitching bad. Yes, we had Cal Quantrill and Austin Gomber look mortal for the first time in over a month, but they weren't even particularly poorly pitched. I would just say inefficient, struggling to get people put away and get consistent outs against a very, very good Los Angeles Dodgers lineup where, they didn't really go super far into the games. For both of them, their first non-quality start in a month now, ending their individual streaks, but they weren't the reason why the Rockies lost either of those games.
Exactly. And that's what I mean when like the starting pitching becomes a non-factor where they're not really the reason the Rockies were losing games. Like they were doing their part. They'd go out there, take the ball, shove for 6 innings or so, turn in a quality start, allow 3 or fewer runs, put in the quality starts, and then leave it up to the team to take it the rest of the way. Fortunately, there was a lot of times where that didn't happen, particularly in that Oakland A's series in last month. But yeah, Austin Gomber, Cal Quantrill really led the way. And then you turn in Ty Block, made 4 starts, not too shabby. Dakota Hudson, for all his problems, actually pretty solid month in his 6 starts. Ryan Feltner. That Feltner was the one who struggled the most. And it was kind of been the story for him where he'll put in flashes of brilliance and then he struggles. And then he's brilliant again and then he struggles again. So he's still kind of finding his footing. But when he was on and they continue that pass the baton mentality in the rotation, man, fearsome, I guess, fearsome fivesome, so to speak. No, but really, those 2 guys at the top, Quantrill and Gomber, man, fun to watch those guys.
And for Felty, it really was a story of every other game where it's like, it went bad game, good game, bad game, good game. So like his first start in May, 5 2/3 innings, that's good, but 5 earned runs, not so much. Then followed that up with a 2-run quality start, but then a 5-run 4-inning start, but then a shutout 6-inning quality start, but then gave up another 5 runs and 4 1/3. So it's just like, he really is the one that struggled the most, but he put together some pretty solid outings. And honestly, you know, with Feltner, it's, you know, we're continuing to watch him try and put things together versus guys like, you know, Austin Gomber and Cal Quantrill. They've already shown what they've got, and they just continued to do what they need to get done. You had a bunch of qualities. You had 5 quality starts for Cal Quantrill. You had 4 quality starts for Austin Gomber. He missed his final start of the month due to some arm fatigue and soreness, but then was right back to pitch against the Dodgers this weekend. It's just been nice to not have to worry about starting pitching, especially when reinforcements are on the horizon as well now, where we've still got a little bit of time, but we know that the fort is going to be held down until guys start trickling back into the system. So it's really nice to see. You know, the bullpen has been extremely hit or miss, but the starting pitching alone is what kept the Rockies sort of reasonable. So they had a team ERA of 4.32 in the month of May, but I think their starting pitching ERA was only like 2.7 something for that month. So it really goes to show you just how well that unit had been performing.
Yeah, and pitching wins ball games. No, that's always been the thing. That's the whole adage that pitching wins ball games. And trying to pull up here as a starting pitchers in the month of May, what it did for the Rockies. Okay.
While you're doing that, I'll expand on that. Pitching does win ball games because I've said this a bunch of times, especially when I'm talking about teams like the Albuquerque Isotopes, who have a pretty solid offense. They can hit down there, but you can't out-hit bad pitching forever. If you have a guy who's going out there and giving up 5, 6, 7 earned runs in a game during his start, you can't really out-hit that. Even if the Rockies offense was firing on all cylinders, you can't make up for that at the plate alone. And so that's why it's been so important, and that's what allowed the Rockies to get these wins rattled off.
And the Rockies have the 17th, ranked 17th in ERA in the month of May as a starting unit, with a 3.93 ERA in 146 2/3 innings, which not too shabby. That was the 16th most innings pitched that month. But in terms of field independent pitching, they're roughly around middle of the pack in the league in terms of pitching, which for the Rockies, heck, you'll take that
any day of the week, especially with all these quality starts we've been getting where, you know, the Rockies had 16 quality starts, which puts them, I think, second in all of baseball for quality starts. I believe it's behind the Phillies, who have just a tremendous rotation right now. So it shows you that there's that potential, there's that hope in the rotation right now. And, you know, coming soon, you know, up on the horizon, you're going to have Herman coming back, Kyle Freeland coming back. Noah Davis just got reinstated from the IL and sent down to AAA. There's actual reinforcements on the horizon. And I think that's going to be even more important for this team, as, you know, some guys are going to start getting fatigued, or, you know, some guys are eventually sort of lose a little bit of their luster. Like, I don't expect Ty Block, the journeyman pitcher, to continue to just throw out incredible starts one after the other. Eventually he's going to have a bumpy go of it. It's just, it's unavoidable. And really, you can say the same for any one of our pitchers. For most pitchers in the league, eventually you're going to throw out a stinker. You can't be perfect every game.
Yeah, and I was trying to look up, because a big part of it too this past month is just good playing at home, where Coors Field became the actual more of a dominant place. They were a lot more confident there at home, and that's what played a big role in their, you know, streaks that they put up. where we'll get an update here on some of the rotation upgrades here or reinforcements coming up. But they started playing really good against these decent teams. Like you mentioned, swept the Rangers. They took 2 of 3 from the Phillies, the best team in the NL. They took 2 of 3 from the Cleveland Guardians, the best team, best record in the American League. So they just started playing better at home. Where Coors Field, some well-pitched ball games too. I think that's the big thing. That's what I was trying to look up. Was the home stats for the rotation here at home again for the Rockies, which turned out pretty good in May for them. I think I got it here. Yeah, but I think that was the big part of it. Is Coors Field became an advantage again for the Rockies.
It really has, and you look at the Rockies in terms of their pitching on the season right now. They've got an ERA at home of 4.94, which is not great, but then it was just so much improved. And you've got guys like Cal Quantrill, who is pitching really well at Coors Field.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think that's been stated enough. Is just how well Cal has done at a very, very hitter-friendly ballpark when he has a history of not pitching there. You know, he pitches in San Diego, which is pretty pitcher-friendly park. Pitched in Cleveland as well, which is sort of neutral as far as I'm aware. But then you look at him at home this year, and he's got a 3.72 ERA in 5 starts at Coors Field in 29 innings, 2-2 record, which, you know, the wins and losses don't really matter as much. But you also look at, you know, the loss yesterday was Cal Quantrill's first loss since April. And remember, when we started the year in April, it took almost the entire month of April for a Rockies pitcher to get a win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it took several weeks before Ryan Feltner got that one in Toronto. Like, took him forever. And I will take a sub-5 ERA as a team at home at Coors Field. Like, that's not terrible. And most of the league is hovering around a 4 ERA at home type of thing. You know, that's a pretty league average type of thing, it looks like. And the Rockies can do that. All right, you're in a good place. Just for the Rockies, they're never going to get that super elite dominant pitching. They'll get it, but just in a different form, where you can just get good pitching, and then that's where you need your offense to pick up. And there was some timely hitting, some streaks in there where the Rockies were firing, where there was power. There was just timely hitting, doubles, all these things, and that really helped them out as a unit and had a good month.
And 26 home runs in the month of May as well, which was up from the 23 in March and April combined. You know, still not a ton of power from this lineup, but it is more. I'll have to look and see how many home runs they had in the month of May in 2023, because it was also their only time in which they had a winning record last year was the month of May. So I'm pulling that up right now. In 2023, in the month of May, the Colorado Rockies had a whopping 36 home runs. Okay, so that's actually a full 10 less than
oh my
year. That's not ideal.
No, it is not.
And we continue to see this power drain with the Rockies. So, you know, Ryan McMahon putting up decent power numbers. He's already got his double-digit home runs for the year, and we're just finishing up with May. So that's at least a plus. We've got guys like Ryan McMahon leading the pack. I think I bet you he gets to at least 20 home runs this year, potentially 30 home runs this year.
Yeah. Probably, I'm going to guess 24 for him, because that seems to be his lucky number when it comes to hitting home runs.
24 for 24.
There you go. But we'll go ahead and take a quick break here after this first segment. We'll come back. We'll update you on some starting pitching rotations, and then figure out some other stuff with Nolan Jones and some young guys on this team of what the heck do you do with them? So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on Affected by Altitude. And remember,
That happens. That's baseball.
Welcome back here to Affected by Altitude. And remember,
It goes in the square hole.
there you go. It goes in the square hole. We're talking about, don't you remember that old video where the girl on TikTok just starts losing her mind?
No,
Anyway.
I have no idea what that is from. I'm not on the TikToks. I'm too old.
I just keep looking at my soundboard and seeing things that could play. They're just deep cuts that you might not get. But
do you have feels like I'm wearing nothing at all?
That's a good question.
I do not.
Sounds like you got to step it up.
Yeah, there's plenty of soundboard things I could get. Plenty of jokes that I just have to think
The
of.
question for you, the audience, is the soundboard an upgrade or a downgrade?
Oh, it's a downgrade 100%, but I don't care.
All of a sudden, we're just getting lots of 1-star reviews.
Yeah.
I used to love the show, and then Skyler got a soundboard.
Yeah, that's why I have to use it sparingly. But moving on, wrapping up here on the rotation stuff. Got some updates about 3 rotation stalwarts, staples from the past, who are slowly working their way back in Kyle Freeland, Herman Marquez, and Antonio Senzatella. Freeland working back pretty soon. Marquez back roughly in a month. And then Senzatella, maybe some point this year by the end of the season. But yeah, 3 guys. And Evan, what are those updates on them?
The biggest one, I think the biggest takeaway is that Herman Marquez might be as little as a month away. Herman was expected after the All-Star break at the earliest, potentially maybe beginning of August or late July. And now we could potentially even have him back before the All-Star break. It sounds like his rehab is going really, really well. Herman's been in great spirits, says his arm is feeling fantastic. He's throwing off of a mound. He, yesterday, so it's June 2nd today. So June 1st, he threw a bullpen session off the mound for about 35 pitches. Looked really good. Had some breaking pitches as well as his fastball. He's headed back to the Arizona complex to keep doing that sort of expanded spring training, live batting practice sort of thing. I'm looking at this quote here. He says, "This is going to make me a better athlete, a better pitcher, and a better person. After his progression, he's going to go on a rehab assignment." And right now, per Thomas Harding, is that he could potentially be back before the All-Star break, which is really, really cool. Another big one is Antonio Senzatella potentially being back this season at all. If you remember during the offseason when talking about the progression of Senzi's Tommy John, it was that they didn't expect him to pitch at all this year.
Mm-hmm.
That he would maybe do a minor league rehab assignment towards the end of the year. And now it sounds like Senzatella is also on a pretty good track. And they're going to be cautious with all these guys. But on the 31st of May, Buddy said that Senzi is starting to throw off the mound. He's going to be doing some bullpen sessions. And all of these guys were in Denver over this last little homestand against the Phillies and against the Guardians. So it was really, really cool to see both of these guys coming back, especially from Tommy John. They both seem to be in good spirits. They're both making great progress. So those are the 2. Kyle Freeland then, number 3 on the list. Buddy caught a little bit of heat in our comment section on Purple Row, and I saw elsewhere on social media for calling moving Kyle Freeland to the 60-day injured list an administrative move. But that really is what it was, and I don't fault it for being phrased that way, where Kyle had already been on the injured list for about 30 days. They were not expecting him back before the 60-day marker. So this way, you can clear a roster spot for somebody else to come in. And for Kyle, he's been throwing off the mound. He's been throwing bullpen sessions. He's starting to speed up a little bit, and then eventually he'll be on a rehab assignment as well. So we are looking at potentially, at the end of June, having Kyle back, being pretty close to having Herman back, and being, setting our sights on having Senzatella back. And all of that's going to be really big for this rotation.
Mm-hmm. And It also just ties into the questions and things the team has to figure out with the rotation of, oh, by the time you get some of these guys back, are you going to be moving Cal Quantrill, Austin Gomber, trading them away? Or Dakota Hudson, he's probably gets shipped out. Ty Block, who's done well. So, the other guys that you probably need to get a look at, like a Carson Palmquist or other guys. So, it all kind of ties into they got to figure. There's some questions. As good as it is to have them getting closer to coming back, it just adds on more question marks. This team's got to figure out with a lot of guys. Which
it seems like we're talking about that a lot with this team, though. Of hey, you guys kind of need to start figuring this stuff out.
Hey, Rockies, you're about to graduate college, and you need to figure out what your major is.
I think I'm just going to backpack around Europe for a little bit. Really try and find myself.
That happens. That's baseball.
You're right, bud. That does happen. That is baseball.
The rotation's a little easier, honestly. It's tough because you have guys like Gomber and you have guys like Quantrill who are both pitching really well. When it comes to Ty Block and Dakota Hudson, my assumption is that one of them is going to get moved into a long relief role. And the other one, whoever the odd man out is either going to be potentially traded depending on performance, or you DFA them. My guess would be if we do not trade Dakota Hudson, he's probably going to get moved into long relief. And then you'll probably see Ty Block, who's been sort of going back and forth with this with the Rockies for the last couple of years, DFA'd and outrighted to AAA so the Rockies can call on him again if needed. It's really tough because if you keep one of these guys, when everyone is back and healthy, you have Freeland, Senzatela, Marquez, Gomber, and Quantrill, let's say. But what about Ryan Feltner? What about calling guys up like Carson Palmquist? What about the eventual plan to start getting Anthony Molina more starts? It gets a little tricky unless you decide that you're going to run with a 6-man rotation, which I don't know if the Rockies would do that at this point.
Yeah, because especially since Gomber and Quantrill still have a year of team control, so they're a little bit more valuable that way. And whereas, you have money tied up in these 3 other guys. Senzatela, sorry, but that deal he signed, that was a bad one for the Rockies as it's turned out.
And it's such a shame because it's not at all because of his performance. It really is just because he's had that bad injury luck where he tore his ACL, worked his way back, came back midseason, and almost immediately needed Tommy John surgery. And that just makes this contract a bad value, even though it's not really a tremendously large contract in the grand scheme of things. The Rockies have a substantial amount of money tied up in Senzatela. Kyle Freeland, who struggled a lot to start the season before being shut down due to injury, the Rockies have a sizable chunk of money tied up in him as well. For Ehrman, they were able to sort of work things out so that they're keeping him in Denver for another year to, sort of give him a chance to get back onto the mound and maybe earn another contract or something, which I'd be totally down for. I mean, if he can bounce back to form, the idea of Ehrman Marquez, the lifelong Rocky, is something that I really like. But if he's unable to recapture that form, then you got to let him go, unfortunately. And it's tough to say that because we love Ehrman, but you've also got to start making smart decisions with a ton of young talent starting to make its way up the roster. You got Carson Palmquist, Gabriel Hughes, Chase Dollander, Sean Sullivan. You've got guys now. You've got some real studs in the starting pitching role down in the farm system, and they can't stay down there forever. And right now there's what is a logjam. It's like the outfield, like the corner infield, like the DH. There are too many guys. There is a glut of players there, and you've got to start making decisions.
Well, you just trade one of those pitching prospects for a random utility infield outfielder that switch hits and plays in Albuquerque.
I don't like that.
That's all you got to do, Evan.
Comparison.
That's all it takes.
Joe Rock pitching very, very well for AAA Durham with the Rays organization. Joe Rock was traded to the Rays in exchange for 26-year-old utility infielder and center fielder Greg Jones, who has been not great in Albuquerque. He's got a couple home runs, has spent a significant time on the injured list. He has a few stolen bases. it was a baffling move then. It continues to be a baffling move now. You know, nothing against Greg Jones as the guy, but it was a move that made no sense for a guy who was not in a position of need.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you always say? If the Tampa Bay Rays are interested in one of your pitching prospects, that should tell you that that's maybe a guy you should hold on to.
Yeah, pretty much. But moving along, because this all ties into what we were talking about next, because Nolan Jones is another guy who's working his way back. He was back. Seems like the back's fine, but he messed up his knee a little bit during his rehab stint, so he's been working his way back from that now, and should be, he's getting closer to coming back to the Rockies. But he's another one where when he comes up, slots in back into left field every day, we assume, and that kind of throws more of these younger guys or these less experienced guys into sort of a weird melting pot and limbo of what are they going to do with them. And there's somebody on Twitter, and unfortunately I don't have the name in front of me, but they kind of asked this question of what do the Rockies, no, honestly, what do the Rockies expect to get out of an Elehuris Montero? And we're throwing in a Hunter Goodman, a Sean Bouchard, a Michael Tolia, some of these younger guys who kind of fit into this outfield, infield, first base mix. What are the Rockies looking to get out of some of these guys, Evan?
Honestly, I don't really know at this point, especially because the playing time has been so sporadic and weird, especially now that Chris Bryant is back, where you've got Jake Cave vulturing starts in the outfield. You've got Chris Bryant getting starts at first base. For guys like Monty, it's really tough because you're trying to make an impact with what little playing time you have, and he's taking good at-bats. Like, I want that to be perfectly clear that Elehuris Montero is taking good at-bats. The problem is he's not getting the results from those at-bats, where he's just, the numbers aren't there hitting-wise to justify keeping him in the lineup. He's hitting 216, 281, 311 with an OPS of 592 and 65 OPS plus. He's got only 3 home runs, 21 RBI. He's not productive, and it's a shame because his actual numbers are pretty okay. He's got a strikeout rate of only 20%. It's one of the better rates on the team. He's got a walk rate of 8.7, which could be higher, but I can't complain too much because he's at least drawing some walks. And he's not really putting the ball on the ground that often. 37.9%, which isn't stupendous, but compared to some of these other Rockies teams and hitters that we've had, where the problem is they're just driving the ball into the dirt every single time, especially compared to last year, where last year he had a ground ball rate of 44.9%, and now it's 37.9. That's a big improvement. But the issue is, every time he hits the ball, it's basically going right into the glove of an outfielder or infielder.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for Montero is, we've heard him since they got him. Oh, this guy can hit. He can hit tanks. And the power just hasn't shown up at the big league level, really. Where, yeah, he can he's thrown out 10 home runs and that kind of thing. But it's, a lot of those numbers are just kind of hollow. Like, yeah, he can take good approach. You can look good at the plate and all right. And there can be a bit of unluck, just not lucky with a lot of things. But at the end of the day, you still need results of some kind. And Monty just isn't really bringing about results, where he's just kind of a placeholder, just filling in space, which, yeah, we like him, team likes him, and he can show that improvement, but there's still, at the end of the day, there's no results. You can improve as much as you want, but when you're still not producing really that much, or it's kind of sporadic producing, not really sure why or what they expect to get out of him at this point.
The best comparison for Monty right now is Brenton Doyle, or rather the two contrast, where these are two guys who made major mechanical and plate approach changes over the offseason to drastically different effects, where Brenton Doyle has been very productive. His batting average is finally sort of starting to dip out and normalize, but he's still got non-base percentage of .342. He's got 5 home runs. He's got stolen bases, and he's got the second most walks on the team with 23.
And that's more than his 2023 total.
Yes. Brenton Doyle is made these changes and is productive because of them versus Monty. You know, I love Monty and I want him to succeed, but there's no production there, if that makes sense. He's made all these changes. He's showing all this development, but like you said, it's all very hollow. There's nothing really coming out of it. He's not getting more hits. He's not really tanking a ton of home runs. He's got 3 on the season. And yeah, they've all been huge blasts when he can get a hold of them, but he's just not getting a hold of them enough to, I don't want to say justify his continued playing, but it's time for Monty and for some of these other guys for the Rockies to, you know, poop or get off the pot, as it were.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right, Donkey Kong.
Like you have to start making these decisions. And it drives me crazy that this has just been a continued thing year after year of them punting these decisions where, you know, if you're listening on day of release, my article today over on purplerow.com is about the potential future of the Rockies outfield, looking specifically at guys who are on the big league roster at this time and where they sort of all fit in. And they're, you know, you've got Tolia, you've got Bouchard, you've got Goodman, guys that you need to make a decision on. For Monty, you know, he's still fairly young. He's, I think, just turning 25 pretty soon here. But you've got other corner infielders that you could put at first base. Or if you really are going to be stuck with the Chris Bryant situation, that's where Chris Bryant is going to play.
Yeah. And like this year, we've already seen the Rockies playing Chuck in the outfield more again. And with Bryant back, and they're just, hopefully they're keeping him at first base and just DH. But yeah, he's just kind of squeezed out again where he seems like a perfect, go call somebody up. You're not going to get much back for him. But
you could get something at least.
Yeah, something simple like, hey, this guy just needs a change of scenery. We'll send him over to you. Send us a reliever, a left-handed reliever or something. No, fill a need with him because I feel like he's a guy that could benefit from a change of scenery, a place where, you know, a team that's not necessarily competing right now, but somebody could, you know, mold him, work with him. I always thought, like in the offseason, like, oh, would the Cleveland Guardians take a chance on Elehuris Montero? Like, they need some power. I think he could provide that for them. Something like that. You know, just a simple trade like that.
And it's really frustrating because this is where the Rockies' mishandling of options is really coming back to bite them, where Monty is out of options completely. But if he still had even just one option left, then there's something you can do to get him, you know, send him back down to Albuquerque, give him consistent playing time to keep that bat developing, but give some other guys the opportunity to get some big league starts, shuffle some things around. Heck, if you're worried about Nolan Jones not being able to run full speed coming back off the IL, Nolan Jones has played first base. Sean Bouchard has played first base. Hunter Goodman can play first base. You have so many guys on this team who can play first base, and yet they don't have a first baseman. The continued trials and tribulations of the Colorado Rockies, who haven't really had an actual first baseman since 2014.
I think Todd Helton like left a curse on it, kind of like in Harry Potter. They like cursed the dark arts class or whatever.
The dark arts position is cursed.
Yeah, I think that's what Todd Helton did to first base.
I don't know.
Nobody can replace me, which is true. Nobody can replace the Todd father.
But at some point you've got to, and that's another thing where we thought Tolia was going to be the heir apparent.
Yeah,
but he has just not showed that development bat-wise. His glove is fantastic. He's got a big league glove, but the bat just is not there. And I also think that speaks a lot to the Rockies' development of hitters within their farm system.
Well, and because Tolia is doing pretty good down in AAA. It always seems like Albuquerque's supposed to Tolia hit a 3-run homer, and you're like, heck yeah, man. So it's this disconnect, or that Rockies prospects may have a tough time making that jump from Albuquerque to the big leagues. And that's what it is with a lot of these guys. Hunter Goodman falls into that camp where you kind of like, but we've talked about it before, where he's really a man without a set position. And he's not necessarily very good at two of those positions. And we saw him catch that one game, but that was more out of desperation than something the Rockies really necessarily wanted to do, I think. Where Diaz and Stallings are hurt. Well, Goodman can catch, so we'll throw him in there. But I don't think they really still trust him to be a big league catcher type of thing. So you find these guys where there's just not a lot of trust in or prioritizing these guys. Where Sean Bouchard, he's 28, doesn't really have a future of the next generation of Rockies.
Yeah.
He's a backup bench guy at best, really.
And that's an okay role to have.
Exactly. And he could fill that one.
But then you need to commit to him being that role,
yeah,
and not have 40 other guys who are all backup outfielders and bench bats.
Yeah.
You can't have Jake Cave starting this many games.
Mm-hmm. And the broken hand of Jordan Beck, I think, really threw a wrench in a lot of these plans, where they're like, okay, Jones will come back. We'll slide Beck to right field. We're good. Oh, no, he broke his hand, and now we have to figure out what to do when Nolan Jones's knee is injured. So what do we do? Hey, Chuck, how are your legs feeling?
On the bright side with that, what I will say is we've gotten some pretty, and we'll wrap this up here in a second, we've got some pretty good news on the Jordan Beck front, where it did require surgery, but it's not really as severe as it could have been. They're putting a stabilizing plate in the hand that will hopefully speed up his recovery time, where they think we could have Jordan Beck back.
Guess who's back?
Beck again. Jordan's back. Tell a friend. But we could have him back before the All-Star break, which, if so, then you've got to go back to committing regular playing time for him. And if Nolan Jones is back and he's playing well and he's in left field, then your outfield is set as far as I'm considered. Jones in left, Doyle in center, Beck in right. Chuck, I'm sorry. I love you. You're the DH now. That's just how it's going to be.
Yeah, pretty much. So they got to figure things out, because you got other guys coming too, knocking on the door. Got to figure some stuff out.
Yeah,
you can't
in my opinion, and this was in my article from today, the only guy who is truly locked into his position right now and looking like he is locked into that position for the future is Brenton Doyle.
And Benny, because especially since Benny Montgomery hurt himself, so
that's a rough one.
But it opens up room where, okay, the gamble's paid off, because I think Brenton Doyle's been better than the Rockies expected, and now they're just trying to kind of recoup that plan, because Jake Cave, they're like, oh, we can't really put him in center anymore because Brenton Doyle's playing pretty much every day and he's been doing good. So they got to figure some stuff out and really look long and hard at these guys. And who cares? It doesn't matter if they go off somewhere else and find success. It just keeps coming into play. Yeah. My mouse died, so I can't go move over and click on it. Oh, wait, yes, I can.
That happens. That's baseball.
I had the hotkey.
Oh, boy, this soundboard is going to be the death of me.
It's good
and
stuff.
He doesn't even have stupid, sexy Flanders. So what's the point?
Indeed. But yeah, they got to figure some stuff out. And got to cut guys loose if they don't really have a place. So anyways, we'll take one last break here, and then when we come back, we'll pick up on some other stuff and then also talk about our May Players of the Month. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on Affected by Altitude. Welcome back here to Affected by Altitude. I'm Skyler. That's Evan, hanging out here over our recording video equipment stuff, as my mouse died, so I can't really move around right now. So you're saved from the soundboard for now, Evan.
You know, we're affected by altitude, but we're connected by the internet and our passion for Rockies baseball.
Oh, I would play the nerd one if I could.
Nerd! Oh, you know what you need to get on there is some Hank Scorpio quotes. My favorite, one of my favorite Simpsons characters is Hank Scorpio.
In fact, I didn't even give you my coat.
or some Lionel Hutz. In fact, I've got something that may shock and discredit you. I'm not wearing a tie at all. I moved for a bad court thingy. A mistrial. That's why you're the judge and I'm the law talking guy.
Did you like that joke, Voldemort? There we go. Voldemort approves. It's one of my favorite laughs in movies. But right before we get to our May Players of the Month, Evan wanted to highlight a couple of minor leaguers who are having a not too shabby. Mainly, Idale Amador is the guy we want to talk about. It's been kind of slow, but things slowly starting to pick up for Rocky's top prospect, who really the heir apparent to second base.
Yeah, so, originally selected as a shortstop, pretty much everybody agrees that Amador's future is going to be at second base for the Rockies. But he had a really tough start to the season. He was not hitting at all. Through his first 22 games, he was hitting 118, 309, 132. And that 309 on base percentage speaks volumes to his incredible plate approach that he showcased through his entire thing, where even during how much he had struggled, he didn't mess with his plate approach and continued to draw walks, more walks than strikeouts. That is what makes Amador so special, is that he's got that incredibly mature, impeccable plate approach. He really, you compare his plate approach to that of Charlie Blackmon. Charlie Blackmon is one of the toughest guys to strike out in the league. He's got an impeccable approach and an impeccable eye. And that is Amador. But Amador, for the walk, you crank that up to 11. But it doesn't really mean anything unless you can add some hitting on there. And Amador has a pretty solid hit tool. So we were sort of waiting for him to pick things back up, as it were. But Amador has really started to turn things back on, especially here in the month of May. He's hitting home runs. He's getting RBIs. He's continuing to draw walks. He hit in the last 19 or so games. So you're splitting his 2 games. He's got his batting average over that time, 236, 349, 403, 4 home runs, 14 RBI, 13 walks to 19 strikeouts, as well as 8 stolen bases, because he's quick. And it's really nice to see, because Amador, there were a couple national guys, I think Keith Law was one of them, where he was basically going, I'm not sold on Idale Amador as a top 100 prospect. And with the way he started the season, you can look at that and go, I can kind of see why. But it's just so important to note that he really didn't get into his own head about it. He didn't update his plate approach. And he really had his breakout game on May 25th, where he went 5 for 6 with 11 total bases, including 2 home runs. And since then, he's hitting pretty regularly. He's got a couple multi-hit games. He's got a couple more home runs, RBIs. He's getting there. He's still not perfect by any means, but what it shows is just how difficult that jump is from A-level ball to AA ball. And it was going to take him some adjustment time, but he's getting there. And I don't think we're going to see him this year in the big leagues. I think that's for the best. But I do think he finishes the season in AAA. He's just got to continue to develop and improve against that increasingly good competition. So I just wanted to shout him out. The other guy I wanted to shout out is Yanquiel Fernandez, who's also been heating up pretty well. Excuse me. Where Yanquiel has had a couple multi-hit games in a row right now, but in the month of May especially, he's been pretty hot. In 25 games in May, 307, 330, 409, 2 home runs, 3 doubles, 11 RBIs. He still strikes out a lot, but that is just sort of the batter he profiles as. He's a big-bodied slugger, and he's starting to get the slugging part down. He's another guy where I really don't think you see him this year, and you know what? That's okay. But the big thing was just making sure that he continues to develop, and that's what both of these guys are doing right here. So kudos to them.
Yeah, that's all you need. And there's a lot of good outfielders and good prospects in this system. Was it Robert Callis was named the minor league player of the month for the Rockies in May after a stellar time down in the complex league or whatever. So there's a lot of talent. It's good to see guys develop. I think that's always the big thing is development and growth. Zach Veen fits into that camp this year type of thing. So it's
I would say Benny Montgomery is fitting into that camp before he had to have season-ending surgery, unfortunately.
Yeah. So it's good to see growth. And it goes back to our point. Decisions got to be made at some point about just your path forward and who's taking over and your depth chart and stuff.
Yeah. Amador's at least got a straight path forward. The Rockies aren't going to stick with Brendan Rodgers forever. And Amador has an immediate slot in once Rodgers is gone to play second base. But for guys like Fernandez and Veen and the many, many, many other outfielders, they've got to find a place.
Mm-hmm. The Rockies are going to stop fielding a first baseman and use 4 outfielders.
That sounds like the kind of thing Bud Black would do. I mean, he does that ludicrous 5-man infield in extra innings that never works. So why not 4 outfielders?
Exactly. You're going to give up a lot more
left center, right center, and right, like a rec league softball team.
You're probably going to give up a lot more doubles, but a lot more infield singles that are going to get bunted to the first base side.
Now the pitcher's got to they're going to exclusively draft really fast running pitchers so that as soon as the pitch is delivered, the pitcher sprints over to first base.
There you go. It could happen. We're going to revolutionize baseball. But
that sounds like a Savannah Bananas gimmick, honestly.
Yeah, probably. Oh goodness, the Savannah Bananas. But moving on here. May is over, so that means it's time for our Players of the Month. I should get some more sound bites just for segment changes. But nice rounded month. There are a lot of good performances. But Evan, let's start with our hitters of the month. Who was your hitter of the month? Your position player of the month?
Position players of the month is interesting because there were a couple guys who had really good Mays, but in various different categories. For example, Ryan McMahon led the pack in home runs with 6 in May, but his batting average was just kind of meh, 240, 333 on base, and 450 slugging. Versus, you have guys like Ezekiel Tovar, who in the month of May hit 308, 325, 538 with 5 home runs. And honestly, that's why I am inclined to give my hitter of the month to Tovar. Tovar really caught fire in May. 5 home runs, OPS of 863. The real issue with his game in May was strikeouts. He struck out 35 times and drew only 3 walks. But still his on-base percentage is 325, which is pretty solid. He had a really, really good month. And I think it was Manny Randall who was pointing out just how good he was in comparison to where he was last year. Let me see if I can find that, because the numbers really spoke for themselves. Let's see. A third of the way through the season, Ezekiel Tovar is a completely different hitter. His OPS at this point last year was 695. His OPS at this point this year is 818. Even with his defense combined with his growth at the plate, he is a tremendous player. And
one of the best shortstops in the league right now.
Only 1 error the entire season so far. And you combine that with his improved bat. That's the other thing. Like we were talking about this earlier with all these improved bats. Tovar is in the same vein as Brenton Doyle, as you've seen these adjustments and changes and you're getting production out of it. So great month for Ezekiel Tovar.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. He's mine of the month. Special shout outs though. Brendan Rodgers must hate the month of April, because he did much better in May. Elias Diaz had a good month of May. Jacob Stallings has had a good month of May. But
Jacob Stallings, shocking everyone, as one of the Rockies' most valuable hitters.
Yeah. But with Tovar, I think what caps it off, he had the home run on the 31st, last day of May, which made him, he had 16 extra base hits in May, 10 doubles, 1 triple, 5 home runs, the most in the National League during the month. He was also the first Rocky to compile 35 hits, 5 home runs, and 10 doubles in a month since Charlie Blackmon, who did that in 2019. And he also joined Troy Tulowitzki as the only Rockies players with 10-plus doubles and 5-plus home runs in a calendar month before turning 23. So when
that's the crazy thing, is that he's only 20. He's not even 23 years old yet.
Exactly. So his continued growth, and there's things we'd like to see better. Like, dude, you got to cut down on those strikeouts. But he's still being productive despite the high strikeouts. He's being a high contributor. I think that 2-hole, is the perfect spot for him. I don't think he's a good leadoff hitter like the Rockies were having him do, just because of the strikeouts and the tendency to swing and hit the first pitch for a ground out type of thing. He doesn't have that leadoff approach, but he fits in perfectly in that 2-hole of, okay, Charlie Blackmon gets on base. Okay, I can hit a double. He's at third. Boom. We've set up Ryan McMahon perfectly type of thing. So he's a good table setter guy who perhaps as he grows over the years in his contract, maybe that approach gets refined where then he is taking better plate approach and he is hitting third in the lineup type of thing. But yeah, good solid month from Ezequiel Tovar. Really, really deserving.
You could say the month of May is Tovar time.
It's gonna be May.
It's not May anymore though.
Oh no. But moving on, our now pitcher of the month. Evan, who you got?
So this one comes down to, and I don't think anyone's going to be surprised by this, it comes down to Cal Quantrill and Austin Gomber. Both of them just had phenomenal months of May. Honestly, it's really tough for me to decide just who I want to give it to. Gomber wins in terms of ERA with just 0.68, but only made 4 starts and pitched 26 and 2/3 innings. Cal Quantrill's ERA is 1.71, which is still excellent, but he made 5 starts and 31 and 2/3 innings. Mm-hmm. I think you could comfortably give it to either one of these guys, honestly. Mm-hmm. I feel like, didn't I give it to Cal in April? Or did I give it to Victor Vodnik?
No, I think we gave it to, I think we gave it to Cal. I think we both did.
It's a tough one, honestly. I would be content to give it to Cal Quantrill again. And that's not to discount the contributions that Austin Gomber made to this rotation. Just Cal Quantrill continues to be a really mature, dominant presence. 5 straight quality starts in May. Just really, really strong stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I think for me, I come back down to Cal Quantrill as well. Just because following Cal Quantrill, I think, is making Austin Gomber better. He kind of follows what Quantrill does. In this Dodgers series that just finished up, Quantrill, not really sharp, kind of struggled a little bit. Austin Gomber, kind of the same thing. It wasn't a horrendous start, just not crisp. It wasn't dominant like they had been in the previous month. And so Cal coming in, he's that leader of that rotation. He's that workhorse. He comes out with the fire and energy, comes out, pitched more. I think the only guy that pitched more than Cal Quantrill was Dakota Hudson last month, which how? How did that happen?
Because it really is because of that huge that 7 inning outing on the 31st that pushes him over the edge there.
But he made the starts, pitched more innings, 31 and 2/3. He gave up more runs, a few more hits, but still only 2 home runs, 32 strikeouts, which I think is huge in a starting rotation that can't really get a lot of strikeouts. Cal Quantrill can get strikeouts because of that nasty split finger. And so it's nice. Every time he goes out, I'm like, Quantrill's got this. Like, I don't have to worry about this start.
Yeah. And so, like we said earlier, in regards to his start against the Dodgers. Cal Quantrill having a not so sharp outing, his first in over a month, is not the reason why the Rockies lost that game. And you can say the same about Gomber's start today. The reason why the Rockies lost both of those games is because they had 0 hits with runners in scoring position, despite getting plenty of runners in scoring position.
Yeah. And so Gomber just gets edged out just like by a minuscule little bit. But we got to ding him somewhere, and he didn't make his last start because of his elbow. So Cal edged him out just a bit. But man, it can't be understated enough how great those two were last month. And Cal made the MLB Team of the Month, according to MLB.com. He was the part of the Team of the Month for May, along with some pretty good names on there. And for Cal Quantrill to be as good as he's been for the Rockies, I don't think anybody expected this when they traded for him. So he's 2 for 2. Go Cal. Oh, Canada.
Cal Paul Quantrill got that dog in him.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that Drew Goodman always says? The bulldog mentality?
I guess. Pretty much. Yeah, he got that dog in him. Nothing phases Cal Quantrill. He goes out there. He's got that competitive spirit, which I think is what he's got, that good intensity on the mound that it doesn't become a distraction. It's more of just like a motivating thing. When something good happens,
he's getting himself pumped up.
But when something bad happens, it doesn't phase him.
Exactly. And the just really like professional outings as well. When Patrick Lyons was on the show last week, we talked about this. He had that start against the Athletics that eventually led to a bullpen implosion, but he didn't really quite have his splitter for the beginning of that game. And they're asking about it, and he's like, I didn't have my splitter, so I was like, I better find it because I'm facing a big league lineup, and I'm not going to keep facing it without getting the splitter set. So like that's the exact right way to go about it. No excuses, no bull, just we're going to get it done.
Yeah. He pitches like it's his job, and he's pretty good at it. Good for you, Cal Quantrill. Anyways, I think that'll do it here, Evan, for this edition of Affected by Altitude. Cal Quantrill, 2-time Player of the Month here in 2024. He's on the leaderboard. Tovey and McMahon are 1-1.
When are we required to give him a trophy?
As soon as somebody gives it to us in our budget.
Just go get like a bowling trophy from Goodwill and get it re-engraved.
We don't have the money to get it re-engraved.
I mean, I could get like a Dremel or something on, probably from that same Goodwill, honestly. Just do it myself.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. But that'll do it here. Evan, where can the folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Evan_Lang20. Goodness me, pardon me, at Evan_Lang27. I would love to hear from you. You can also catch me doing the Monday Rock Pile and weekly Pebble Report over on purplerow.com. You can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That's at ROCKYMTN Rooftop. And Skyler, where can we find you at?
Find me on Twitter at sideline_crowd. Good stuff. Making memes that end up becoming more popular than they probably should be, but hey, I'll take it. But yeah, you can follow me there, writing Wednesday Rock Piles. And then I'll get back into writing some stuff for Fans First Sports Network, hopefully. But yeah, good stuff. And let us know in the comments, maybe link to YouTube videos where I can get sound bites for the soundboard.
Yeah.
I have my method.
That's a Pandora's box to open right there.
Within reason, they must be safe for work. Humorous Simpsons references are very much appreciated. And remember, Evan,
that happens. That's baseball.
That one's going to get a lot of play.
Yes, it will. It's almost like we have a t-shirt available on our spread shop.
Spread shop shirts.
Yeah.
Which you can find a link to on the Purple Row posting.
Hey, but that'll do it here. This has been Affected by Altitude. I'm Skyler. That's Evan. Hit him with it.
Farewell. Oh, here's one. Here's somebody new. It's like, keep watching the skis. Mr. Papadopoulos is going to kill me.
Send us out, Werner Herzog.
Here comes Honey Boo Boo.
Thanks. Farewell.